Disclaimer. This show is not for the faint of heart or the easily offended. The views expressed here are those of the show hosts only and not their wives, girlfriends, husbands, boyfriends, polygamous partners, employers, music artists, business, or anything other than the Cognitive Disillusions podcasters. The explicit tag is there for a good reason. Please proceed with caution. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of Cognitive Disillusions podcast, where we address the current issues of today with brash humor, skepticism, or aggression to invoke critical thinking in the masses. We take your tightly held beliefs, even our tightly held beliefs, everyone's tightly held beliefs, mash them up with the current events, politics, and religion, and throw them to the fires of skepticism. We magnify the so-called logic and then blow them all up. There is no green zone of safety for a lack of critical thinking here. This is episode number 1. I'm Al, your main host for today, and today with me is Joel, my co-host, and we'll be your tormentors today. So, you like that, huh?
I do, yeah. I like to torment.
Interfaith relationships, in my opinion and my viewpoint, are a mix of either religious with another religious person or a religious person with an atheistic worldview person. Are you willing to accept that definition today, Joel?
Yes, yeah.
Have you been in interfaith relationships before?
Not necessarily in a romantic sense, but certainly with family, yeah.
And how does that dynamic work now? Do you view yourself as an atheist?
Yes.
Okay, so you hold to that label. So how does that impact your relationship with family or friends?
Well, you know, that's kind of a moving target, as you can imagine. I do have a family that is very religious. However, our love for one another and just all the things that we've all been through does thankfully, persevere through any differences of opinion we may have in regards to religion.
Now, do those interfaith relationships impact your music at all? I know you're a musician. You were one of the primary key artists in the extra music that people are going to hear after this podcast. Does that affect how you write and the music that you write at all? Do you know?
At this point, I tended to not go into that topic to any specific level. My music that I write generally tends to be more just about like relationship issues or even just abstract things that, you could point to might have a context of wanting to break outside not just religious thought, but uncritical thinking in general.
The reason why I ask is because I don't know if you know, I'm in an interfaith relationship. My wife has whatever religious viewpoints or beliefs that she has. I'm still not entirely clear what her views are, even though I've asked. We just kind of got to the point where we don't talk about that. We leave that out.
Yeah.
I know it affects my writing, and I know it affects my viewpoint in the way I deal with people at my other jobs. And I was wondering if that affects you at your job, if you have any implications or boundary issues that occur because of it.
It does. I mean, truth be told, I'm comfortable saying this. I work in the medical field. I work in a particular specialty of that has to deal with the bigger issues that we all have to deal with in life, end-of-life issues and things of that nature. And I certainly get people of all faiths that I help participate in their care. I make a concerted effort to just avoid any banter in that regard, or any kind of a give and take. I try to just redirect a conversation if I see that I'm having a conversation that's tending to head into kind of religious territory, and I think you can use your imagination of what that might be in an end of life kind of situation. And it is challenging. It's something I've had to hone to not get frustrated with the decisions some people make in that context, in that situation. All I have in my toolbox in that scenario is empathy, and that's all I can give. And so I realized that in that kind of a situation, I'm not important. My opinions aren't important. Only thing that's really important in that case is just being available in an emotional way and supportive way to the people that I get the opportunity to work with.
Fair enough. I can understand that. Do you come across a lot of conflict outside of work at all? I know that you and I met via Facebook because of my very outspoken banter on websites. Has that impacted you? Do you continue to engage?
When I first, just to kind of frame this up, I think a lot of people that identify as atheists, again, I'm speaking in very general terms, we all have different paths that lead us to that conclusion. But I do think, generally speaking, there is, when you first sort of have the revelation, pardon the turn of phrase there, that it is bullshit, that you've been lied to your whole fucking life. There is a pretty intense amount of anger that comes along with that. I've seen it a lot. I wouldn't say it's categorical, but pretty damn close to that. And when I did go through that phase, it did have a tremendous impact. And I did a lot of things and said a lot of things that today I wouldn't, and today I regret.
Why do you regret them?
Because it was, when I think back now, I lost a couple of friendships, and now, and it really was my responsibility in these cases that I'm kind of having in my mind right now. And now looking back, it wasn't worth it to me to be so out there with them. Because to them, when looking back now objectively, I was the one making it the bigger deal. I didn't have people in my life that were in-your-face religious, and yet I was in-your-face atheist. And I wish I would have handled it differently, because those relationships were more important to me than the debate in hindsight.
See, I'm of two minds of that concept, because I also went through the very outspoken, very in-your-face, very angry atheist position for a long while. And I still hold some of that anger today, and that's one of the things that contributed to spawning this podcast.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is, if you see somebody being actively harmed by something, whether they know it or not, is it or isn't it moral to act on that? That's one of the reasons why I don't have an issue with Christians, Jews, Muslims proselytizing to me. They're viewing my salvation in their eyes as a critical thing, and they're caring enough to come to me and go, hey, you're fucking up. And I see that on the counterbalance of going, you know what, you're being lied to, you're being deceived, and this is why. And being confrontational, I'd rather lose those friends by caring, even if it was out of anger, than vice versa. And I think that's where you and I diverge.
Well, I don't actually think so. I want to be. I want to say that the people I'm imagining or thinking about in this, and again, this is all very circumstantial. It just really depends on the relationship, all those factors. These particular ones that I'm talking about, there was not. I guess I would say their religious views weren't so invasive that I thought that their religious views weren't actually just sort of trumped by how we deal with the world, just through empathy and critical thinking. It didn't impact their lives in such a way that what you're describing as far as there being a danger, or even a scenario in which, maybe they were hyper indoctrinating their kids or something. That wasn't part of the scenario.
That you observed, or for a fact there were no negative impacts? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, it's close to knowing a fact. One person in particular, I spent a lot of time around, and it wasn't a big deal. Their religion was not, or their belief system was not a big part of their life. I would say they just weren't devout. But in that same vein, when I have all these things I'm saying that are probably true, it does put people back on their heels that are religious, and they tend to almost regress into those indoctrinated states. And so I can't help but wonder if my overly aggressive technique actually might have done some level of regression in their state of mind with their belief system.
That's entirely possible to a point. But anytime somebody has a conversation, say with an atheist like you or I, out and open, it always gives that little seed of doubt. Yeah. So it's my hope, because I was pulled out of indoctrination, that those little seeds of hope over time could have benefited your friends later, even though it unfortunately
I hope that's the case too. Yeah, I definitely see that perspective, and ultimately, as atheists, we only have, like I say, a few tools in our tool chest to deal with life, and granted, they're very powerful tools such as empathy and love and critical thinking, and I kind of lost track of where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. We all have those moments. We've pretty much hammered this to death, so we're going to move on. So in tying into the interfaith relationships, I saw a post from you earlier today on Facebook that said concept of, quote, scared to life, end quote. What does that mean to you? And what exactly were you bouncing back and forth?
Sure, yeah. I couldn't say, necessarily the origin of the thought itself, but I guess the first thing that popped in my mind was the saying that we hear all the time, I was scared to death, right? Very colloquial, and cliche, we all say that. And I don't know, all of a sudden a spark kind of hit me, and I considered those moments in my life that were rather profound and scary, that actually made me want to live, want to push forward, and actually made me feel more alive for having gone through them. And so, yeah, that little notion popped into my head of scared to life, and I can imagine 1,000 scenarios in which some major event would maybe spur that appreciation for how fragile this existence is, and how lucky we are to be afforded the opportunity to experience it.
I can understand that. Let's start off with, let's go into Kim Davis, the fucking nutball out there in Kentucky.
Yeah,
So,
that's quite a
crazy
story.
Yeah. So crazy old Kim Davis, I call her crazy, but she may very well be sane. There's some questions there in my opinion. She's a Rowan County clerk. She got in illegal hot water this last week by refusing to do sign gay marriage licenses.
Yeah.
And she got put in jail, got loose. Judge Bunning released her. And she's back in jail this week, correct?
If she is, I must have missed that, but I knew that it was. It seemed imminent that was going to take place. So if that happened, then I could certainly do a quick little Google search here.
That's okay. We'll use it as a follow-up for next week's show. Do a follow-up and see if she actually was rearrested. But she got arrested for refusing to do the gay marriages on religious grounds, which didn't hold up. And she also tried to argue that, what was that court case? I can't recall. It was a major case for civil rights that was used against her. And she got burned for it, essentially, put in jail, and then released several days later. And now she's altered forms that don't comport with Kentucky law anymore because they don't have the county that they're in. They don't have her name. And she's citing religious reasons for, altering the forms this time around, even though she has a staff member who's willing to do the marriage licenses. But she's been insisting on the rest of her staff that she can't, and they can't because it's got her name attached to it. So they've made all those legal ones invalid by her actions this week.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to that?
Well, if we really got a two-pronged thing happening here. We've got certainly the legality involved with this, which seems to me pretty cut and dry based on the court order and just based on the law as I'm aware of it. And, I'm not sure there's any leg to stand on in that regard. Of course, the other angle to this is the moral side of this. And, whether or not, religious rights do trump the rights of other people when the other people are just trying to go about their lives and follow the law as it's written. And again, I personally, I don't think she has a leg to stand on in that regard either. Certainly up for debate. I know it's a big grandstand for the evangelical Christians, many of them, not all of them, thankfully. It's really a disgrace to this country that we would have even one person backing her side, let alone a presidential candidate like Mike Huckabee.
Yeah, that was some entertainment that I was actually hoping you'd bring up. The fact that she came out of the courthouse, met up with Mike Huckabee, and what's that other moron's name that's also running? I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Cruz,
but Cruz, yeah, Ted Cruz. Thank you, that nitwit. So she comes out to Journey. Was it Journey that wrote that? No, it wasn't Journey.
No, it wasn't Journey. I know what you're talking about now. Here I am having
It was Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah, that was the song. I can't.
The song was Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've since sued his campaign and her for unlawfully using their song, which is supposed to be an inspirational song for overcoming adversity, which she is not overcoming adversity. She's oppressive towards adversity. She's oppressive towards gay people and towards all America, in my opinion, because she's saying that the law of the land, which says that they have the constitutional right to get married, which even if the Constitution was in opposition to it, I'd have to be in opposition to the Constitution at that point, which I'm not, fortunately. And the 14th Amendment, civil rights, the black Americans and women back in the 50s and 60s fought for equality, and it just needs to be, in my opinion, spread to everybody. But I know you hold the same view.
I do. As many things as we disagree on, this certainly isn't one of them, and we need to call this what it is. It's bigotry. It's hatred. It's the very epitome of immorality. And she, along with anybody that takes her stand on this, really needs to take a look in the mirror. And ultimately, I think that the history will show that it's a shameful stance to hold, a shameful belief system to hold. And it is not anything but anti-love. And nothing could be more offensive to me than being against love.
I can agree with you quite a bit on that. And I've noticed there are a lot of memes going around, especially on the religious right, comparing Kim Davis to Rosa Parks. Unfortunately, that doesn't hold up.
No.
If you really think about it, it's not Rosa Parks that she's the equivalent of. It's the bus driver in the Rosa Parks case, which is quite sad.
Yeah.
So
I think that's an apt comparison, much more so than comparing her to Rosa Parks. And we've got two completely separate things here. We've got somebody holding to some ideas of theirs that they want to force upon other people, whereas Rosa Parks was who she was. It wasn't a thing she decided to be. She didn't decide to be African American. That's who she is in a fundamental, undeniable way. And she wasn't trying to force her life on anyone else. She wanted equal footing just to be who she was. And the comparison to Rosa Parks just really gets me going.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I screamed at my screen for about 2 minutes before making a counter meme that tied her in with the bus driver and the gay and lesbian and transgender questioning people in the Rosa Parks position, which really spun it around quite a bit. I got a lot of hate mail for that, so I'm quite thankful that I got the hate mail, and quite depressed that I got hate mail for that. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So moving on to another religious aspect, religious content for this particular issue is Coral Springs, Florida City Commission has ended their invocations because of a Satanist. And this guy, Chaz Stevens, is a fucking genius in my opinion. So Chaz Stevens put in a request because they have invocations before every city commission meeting. And the city commission has a tendency to do Christian prayer, majority Christian prayer, and nothing else. So he put in a request to have twerking Satanists, that's right, twerking Satanists, before the meeting. And they said no, they're not going to do any more invocations because of the twerking Satanists. Just to be
clear, that's Miley Cyrus with devil horns, I guess?
I don't know. He said it was either twerking Satanists or bringing a mariachi band. So I personally would like to see the twerking Satanist, not exactly Miley Cyrus with devil horns, but I don't know, her performance at the VMAs was pretty damn close to what I'd imagine.
Helbing.
Fuck. These people, I swear to God, man.
Yeah, so I think we probably diverged a bit there from what we were talking about.
That's fine by me.
That's some great imagery.
Oh, thank you. You sparked it, man. Jesus
I know.
Christ. He's, and Mayor Skip Campbell of the city he was not happy with the U.S. Supreme Court decision that mandated if cities allow prayer, they must allow all prayer. And apparently he thought all prayer must have meant all of his church. Fucking
Yeah,
dumbass.
or maybe different denominations of Christianity or something narrow-minded like that.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
don't get the logic, but whatever. I don't think it should be prayer at all. I think it should be completely separate. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some dumbass atheist.
Yeah,
So,
and let's frame this up a little too. No one is making a suggestion that people that are participating in government one way or another can't, in a private sense, have a prayer before they are going to be making decisions, whatnot. You want to do that before you come in to the courthouse or the community square of some kind. That's fine. But when you make it an official sort of event at a government function, you're just breaking the law.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I hold the same view. If, a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or whatever wants to go, or a Buddhist or Hindu, doesn't fucking matter to me, wants to go, you know what, before I make this decision, give me a moment, I need to pray on it. Okay, you talk to your imaginary friend. I'm kosher with that. That's all I have for today. I've got some follow-ups on some of the topics we covered today, a few other topics for next week, and we can run those at the next recording. How's that sound for you?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so we're going to rock out to Joel's band. Do you want to give a shout out about the band that played the exit music here?
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to my boys from the old band Untied, Larry, Brad, Trevor. Absolutely.
All righty, and where can we find them at online? Do they have websites or anything like that we can forward people to?
Yeah, I don't know, not right now. We're all in kind of different projects or have moved on, but maybe there's something up on Reverb Nation, something like that.
Okay, excellent, and we will exit out. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.